How do we experience God's presence? What is that like when we are in God's presence? How do we know that we are in God's presence? That's what we're focusing on this week. We are focusing on God's presence and how to recognize when you're in God's presence, how to get into that place where you are very aware of God's presence. And it is easier for the Holy Spirit to communicate with you, and you're able to get that direction. So today we're starting with those very profound, you can't miss it. It was abundantly obvious that God's presence was there. And that brings us to Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 1. And it says, "Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see what this great sight, why this bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God." This is a very profoundly significant moment in Moses' life. Moses is not missing the fact that this is God. He is looking at this bush. It is burning, but yet somehow it's not getting burned up like it would if an actual bush were set on fire. And then he's hearing God's voice out of it. That's hard to miss. And there's times where you are in God's presence and you're not going to miss it. It's going to be abundantly obvious, just like this. Another example from the New Testament this time is in Acts 2, verses 1 through 4. And it says, When the day of Pentecost arrived, they were all together in one place. And suddenly there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. And divided tongues as of fire appeared to them and rested on each of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Again, a very obvious movement of God, manifestation of God. I'm going to keep using that word. God manifested himself through the burning bush. He's manifesting himself through this mighty rushing wind and the tongues of fire, and then the people are speaking in tongues. These significant moments where it is so obvious that God is there are called a theophany. That is not a word that you will find in the Bible, but it is what Bible scholars call it. And what it simply means is it is a manifestation of God in a very sensible form. And I don't mean sensible as in like you're sensible with your budget and you don't overextend it. I mean sensible in that you are aware of it in one of the five senses, through your touch, through your hearing, through your sight, through your smell, or through your taste. You are aware of God's presence. That is how a theophany is defined. Merriam-Webster defines it as a visible manifestation of a deity, but yet the Encyclopedia Britannica calls it a manifestation of a deity in some form that you can understand through the senses. Now, one of the etymologies of theophany is also called an epiphany. Now, epiphany is very similar to a theophany in that it is a manifestation of God that you are able to experience through those five senses. In Baker's Evangelical Dictionary of Biblical Theology, a theophany is called a manifestation of God that is tangible to the human senses. BibleStudy.tools.com says that God appears to humanity in thunderstorms, clouds, smoke, pillars of fire, chariots, as a man, as a warrior, as an angel of the Lord, and among others in court scenes. As you can see, there are many different types of theophany. Many categorize three theophanies into three categories: non-human form, appearance as a man, and appearance as an angel. Theophany and epiphany both mean a manifestation of God. There's plenty of epiphanies in the Bible as well. There's Mary being told that Jesus would be born, Paul's experience on the road to Damascus. All of the prophets had epiphanies or theophanies. Both of them are manifestations of God. Paul being told where to go next in his missionary journeys, and Ananias being told not to fear Paul, even though Paul was formally murdering Christians. And then I wanted to close today's message with Jeremiah 29, and you're probably thinking 29:11, but no, that's not where we're going. 29:12 and 13 say, "Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." We're going to be looking at how God manifests himself in our lives, not just in the Bible, but how he's manifesting himself today, and how we can get to that point where we have calmed ourselves down, not shut our brain off, that's the wrong phrase, where we have gotten ourselves so focused on God that we start to see and understand him in a way that we never have before. That's what our focus is this week: theophanies and epiphanies. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.